God would establish his own covenant with man. So the first thing that goes into establishing the covenant of God with man is a consent. Number one is a consent. So what was the consent? What was the issue? Okay, I told you there was always a consent. Laban came to Jacob because he had the consent. He had the consent that Jacob will marry another wife aside from his daughter, that he will come back, to fight him because he knew that God was with Genesis chapter 2, verse 17. Alright? Say, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest it, thou shalt surely die. So what was the consent? The consent was death. Man was dead. Okay, man disobeyed God. Man has eaten of the fruit that he was not supposed to eat. Now he's in a spiritual state of death. Ephesians 2 verse 1 says, and you had he quickened who were dead in trespasses and sins. Alright, so sin was the concern. Alright, so the next thing that goes into establishing God's covenant was the sacrifice. Alright, remember this is the main thing that goes into a covenant. Okay, the sacrifice. What was the sacrifice? Remember, in earthly covenant, there has to be the sacrifice of a sheep or oxen. Okay, now the sacrifice itself, okay, is the Son of Man. The Son of Man was the sacrifice. Luke chapter 9, verse 22, and Acts chapter 2, verse 23 capture this perfectly. Right, so I'll just read Acts chapter 2, verse 23. Him being delivered by the determinate counsel of the foreknowledge of God, he have taken, and by wicked hands you have slain. Alright, so that was the sacrifice. Okay, that was the sacrifice. Jesus was slain. Revelation 13:8 calls him the lamb that was slain before the foundation of the earth, before the foundation of the world. Alright, Revelation 5:6, Revelation 9:10, Revelation 5 verse 6. Please, I want you to pay attention to this. Okay, Revelation 5:6 and says, and behold, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the four beasts, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb, okay, as it had been slain. Alright, stood a lamb as it had been slain, having seven horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 Spirit of God sent forth unto all the earth. And he came and took the book out of the right hand of him that sat upon the throne. Now, this is the difference between the earthly covenant, okay, and God's own covenant. Alright, the difference between the earthly covenant and God's own covenant is that the earthly covenant can be broken. The earthly covenant lacks continuity. It is weak. It does not endure forever. Alright, now Apostle John is saying here that he saw a lamb stood. Okay, he saw a lamb stood as it has been slain. Alright, so the lamb was slain, but it still stood. Alright, but in the earthly covenant, once the lamb is killed, that is it. It doesn't resurrect again. Okay, but Jesus, the sacrifice, was slain and he lives forevermore. Alright, so you see that this sacrifice is a living one. Okay, so you see in Genesis chapter 26, verse 18, that Isaac was digging the well that his father started digging, and after his father's death, Abimelech, that's the king of Gerar, came to him to stop him from building the well. And this was part of the reason why they struck a covenant. So the moment he saw that Abraham was dead, he collected all the wells that Isaac was digging because his father was no more. Okay, same thing also happened with David and Jonathan. Alright, so David said, is there anybody in the household of Saul that I can show mercy to? Okay, and Mephibosheth was brought. Okay, David might as well forgot and nothing will happen because it's not an eternal covenant. But David remembered. He remembered the oath he had with his friend Jonathan. Okay, but when you come to the New Testament, okay, and we are talking about the sacrifice of Jesus, you see in Acts chapter 9, okay, when Paul was persecuting the disciples of the Lord, what happened? The Lord came appear to him and say, Paul, do you know why are you persecuting me? He was like, who are you? And said, it is me you are persecuting. It's I, Jesus, you're persecuting. So our Savior is living. Our sacrifice is a living one. Is a speaking one. In one of the episodes of the covenant series, I said the covenant we have is a speaking covenant, is a living covenant, and is a breathing covenant. Even before I got to this point of study, I just knew that there was something about it already. So the next thing that goes into God establishing his covenant with man is the parties. Okay, and this is another striking difference. Okay, now I need to say it very clearly. You can do your study. Okay, God, there is no mortal party involved in establishing the covenant of God. This covenant of God. No man came to God and said, God, let's strike a covenant. Okay? No man came to God and said, God, let's strike a covenant. Why did I say that? Because the Bible says we were dead in sins and trespasses. Alright? We were dead in sins. It's not what God can do for us. Alright? So God did not come into covenant. God did not make a covenant with man. Are you getting my point? But God had man in view when he was making that covenant. The covenant that God made was for man, was to man. That is why in Acts chapter 2, verse 39, he says, and the promises is to you and to your children. Okay? And as many as them that the Lord will call.